Okay, let's just dive right in. Imagine opening up a dusty plastic storage bin and pulling out every single pay stub you've collected from 2005 all the way to 2025. Well, that's exactly what the creator in today's explainer did to solve a deeply relatable financial mystery. We're going to trace exactly what happens to our money as we progress through our careers, get those promotions, and, actually start making decent money. Because we really need to figure out where all those hard-earned raises actually go. More importantly, we're going to see how a series of small, kind of harmless-looking decisions can quietly, completely hijack our financial futures.
And there's this absolutely brutal contrast we have to talk about right out of the gate. On one hand, you have an incredibly successful earning trajectory, a massive 161% salary increase over 20 years, going from a modest starter salary of $28,000 all the way up to $73,000. That's a huge win, right? But then, look at the total amount actually invested after 2 decades of that consistent growth. It sits at just $29,400. So the problem here isn't about being underpaid or failing to climb the ladder. The income absolutely went up. The real mystery is how someone can successfully earn so much more money over time, yet have almost nothing to show for it in their investment portfolio.
So before we unravel this whole thing, I actually want you to make this personal. Seriously, take a second. Think about your very first full-time salary. Got it? Okay, now compare it to what you make today. Hold that difference in your head. We almost always just absorb these pay bumps into our daily lives without ever truly calculating their long-term potential. Keep your own numbers in mind as we go through this explainer, because we're about to put a very real and, honestly, probably pretty shocking price tag on that exact gap.
Right, let's get into the cold, hard math of what happens when we lay out every single raise received over a 2-decade career. It's essentially a sequential ledger of career progression. Because, it's one thing to vaguely realize you make more money now than you did 10 years ago, but it is a completely different experience to actually see each individual raise stacked up, one right on top of the other.
When you lay it all out, it turns out a massive $41,000 to $45,000 a year of extra income silently arrived while the earner basically just stood there. It's incredibly consistent. A $4,500 bump in 2008. By 2017, boom, a massive $8,000 raise. Then $6,500 in 2020, and it just keeps going. Adding up all those incremental raises through 2024 reveals tens of thousands of dollars in surplus annual income. This was money that literally didn't exist at the start of the career, just flowing freely into checking accounts year after year. So, what actually happens if we apply the magic of compounding to just a fraction of that newly found money? Honestly, the math is staggering. If just half, literally just 50% of those raises were invested monthly at a standard 7% return, compounding would have turned it into over $300,000. And notice, we aren't talking about investing all of it. That would be a complete fantasy. You have to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? But just half. If half of every raise was put to work the very month it landed, compounding interest would have done over $100,000 worth of the heavy lifting while the earner was fast asleep.
Instead, the creator ended up with around $29,000, rather than that potential $303,000. That is an agonizing $274,000 gap. And that's life-changing money. In a crazy twist of irony, that exact amount perfectly matches a typical Coast Fire goal. That financial independence milestone where you have enough invested early on that compounding alone just carries you to a comfortable retirement without you ever needing to invest another dime. That entire Coast Fire number was successfully earned. It just slipped right through the cracks.
Be brutal with yourself for just a second here. What genuinely changed in your daily happiness when you got your biggest pay bump? When that extra $5 or $8 grand hit your annual salary, did your day-to-day joy actually skyrocket? Or did the money just kind of get absorbed into the background noise of everyday life? It's incredibly easy to elevate our spending to match our new income without actually experiencing any proportional increase in our quality of life.
Now, we do have to defend the past a little bit here, because early raises often go toward basic survival, not just frivolous spending. It's so vital that we don't turn a financial audit like this into some sort of shame machine. When you're just starting out or navigating tough life transitions, a pay increase isn't extra money to play with, it's the literal lifeline you need to build a functional foundation. We call this essential spending infrastructure.
But the pivot between infrastructure and creep is stark. Just look at the 2008 raise of $4,500. That was pure infrastructure. It funded childcare and a car that actually started every morning. That money bought the ability to just keep working and earn all those future raises. But fast forward to 2017. With all the basic needs already met, a massive $8,000 raise arrived, accompanied by this really dangerous internal monologue of, well, I have earned this. It wasn't deployed with any real purpose. Instead, it evaporated into a slightly higher car payment, maybe a marginally nicer apartment, and an untracked drift of subscriptions that are basically impossible to even itemize today.
And this brings us to a super critical concept. Lifestyle creep doesn't announce itself as a mistake. It masquerades as a completely reasonable, permanent upgrade to your life. It doesn't show up at your front door wearing a giant sign that says, "Hey, I'm going to delay your retirement by 5 years." No, it shows up as premium streaming services, a luxury trim on your vehicle, or moving to a slightly better zip code. Because you can technically afford the monthly payment with your brand new raise, your brain just flags it as a totally safe decision.
To really grasp why this matters so much, let's look at the staggering hidden cost of something as simple as a $200 a month nicer apartment. On the surface, $200 a month feels like an absolute drop in the bucket when you've just landed an $8,000 annual raise, right? It feels like a modest, well-deserved reward for all your hard work. But the true cost of adding permanent expenses goes way, way beyond just the monthly cash flow. Based on the standard 4% retirement withdrawal rule, generating that extra $2,400 a year for your apartment means you must have an additional $60,000 sitting in your investment accounts. Let that sink in. That slightly nicer apartment didn't just cost you $200 a month. It literally added a 60 grand anchor to your retirement mountain. It permanently increased the total amount of wealth you have to build before you can ever declare financial independence.
But hey, we absolutely do not want to fall into the trap of extreme frugality here. What we need is a systematic way to capture money without feeling deprived. Trying to save absolutely every single penny of every raise, that's just a recipe for total burnout. You earn that money, and you absolutely should experience the benefit of your hard work. The goal isn't to live like a starving college student forever. The ultimate goal here is intentionality. So the immediate solution is the 50% rule. The exact day a raise is approved, you automate half of it directly into investments before it ever even hits your checking account. This is how we take back control, and the real secret sauce isn't just the saving part, it's the automation. The psychology here is pretty much bulletproof. You cannot miss money that you have never actually seen in your daily checking account. By splitting the raise right down the middle, you still get a very real, tangible lifestyle upgrade, but you also guarantee that your net worth grows perfectly in lockstep with your career progression.
Project this strategy into the future, and the stacking effect is just incredible. Capturing just a single $5,000 raise and letting it compound brings in nearly $140,000 on its own. Now add that to a standard $625 monthly Roth IRA contribution, and suddenly you're watching your combined automated stack rocket past $348,000. This is the raw power of making one really good decision on a random Tuesday afternoon and then just letting automation do the heavy lifting for a decade and a half.
Honestly, the most forgiving part of this entire explainer is realizing you have already mastered the hardest part of the equation, earning the money. Showing up to work, improving your skills, navigating all that office politics, securing the promotions, that requires a massive amount of energy, resilience, and talent. And you've already proven you can do that. You are already generating the cash. Catching it isn't a test of your character or willpower, it's merely a test of your systems. It is literally just setting up an automatic transfer.
You can absolutely capture extra cash just like our source creator did by funneling a massive 29% part-time income raise directly into killing consumer debt, with a final target of wiping out a $35,800 student loan balance. They took on a side hustle bringing in $1,800 a month. But rather than letting that huge income bump inflate their lifestyle, every single cent was captured and aggressively deployed to destroy their consumer debt. Now it's laser-focused on wiping out the final boss, the student loans. It just proves that when you are totally deliberate, you can successfully quarantine new income and use it as a serious financial weapon.
But here's something absolutely crucial to keep in mind. A massive trapdoor you have to watch out for is paying off a debt. You must treat that disappearing payment as a brand new raise and automate it immediately. Think about it. Let's say you finally pay off a $400 a month car loan. The second that debt is gone, you essentially just handed yourself a $400 a month raise. If you aren't paying close attention, that $400 will seamlessly disappear into restaurants or clothing within a month. You have to capture that freed up cash flow the exact same day.
Obviously, you can't go back and invest a raise from 2017 because that money is long gone, but auditing your past will give you the absolute resolve to aggressively capture your future. Look, regret is not a financial strategy, but it is an incredibly powerful catalyst for change. Don't shy away from looking at your own history. Go dig out your old pay stubs, open up your tax returns from 5 years ago, and really look at the numbers. Yeah, seeing the gap between what you earned and what you actually kept might sting for an afternoon, but confronting that reality is exactly what strips away the illusions and arms you with the fierce determination you need to protect your future income.
I want to leave you with this provocative final thought to really lock in your resolve for the rest of your career. When your next raise gets approved, or the moment your next car loan gets paid off, what is your number going to be? Will it be 50%? Maybe 75%? Make a commitment to that system right now. Make the decision before the money ever even materializes, and ensure that the next 20 years of your hard work actually ends up right where it belongs, in your pocket.